The wind howled like a tormented soul across the snow-swept moors of Yorkshire, blanketing Hargrove Manor in an impenetrable shroud of winter darkness. It was December 1935, and the estate's grand halls, once alive with festive cheer, now echoed with uneasy silence. Guests had gathered for Sir Reginald Hargrove's annual Yuletide soirée, but the blizzard sealed them in like prisoners. Chapter 1. The Arrival of the Storm. The wind howled like a tormented soul across the snow-swept moors of Yorkshire, blanketing Hargrove Manor in an impenetrable shroud of winter darkness. It was December 1935, and the estate's grand halls, once alive with festive cheer, now echoed with uneasy silence. Guests had gathered for Sir Reginald Hargrove's annual Yuletide soirée, but the blizzard sealed them in like prisoners. The motorcar's headlamps cut twin tunnels through the swirling white, illuminating nothing but the relentless descent of snow. Hercule Poirot sat in the back seat, impeccably dressed in a charcoal overcoat with an astrakhan collar, his gloved hands folded over the silver head of his cane. His green eyes, sharp as cut emeralds, studied the landscape with the precision of a watchmaker. The chauffeur, a stoic Yorkshireman named Briggs, gripped the wheel with knuckles white as the drifts outside. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, his breath fogging the window. "This English winter, it bites like the fangs of a wolf. One does not merely endure it, one is devoured by it." Briggs grunted in agreement, his voice rough as gravel. "Aye, sir, worst storm in 20 year. Roads'll be gone by morning. Lucky we made the turn-off when we did." The car lurched over a hidden rut, and Poirot steadied himself with a gloved hand against the leather seat. He disliked automobiles at the best of times. Too fast, too noisy, too undignified. But the invitation from Sir Reginald Hargrove had been impossible to refuse. A personal note, written in a spidery hand on heavy cream stationery. "My dear Poirot, your reputation precedes you like a comet. Join us for Yuletide at Hargrove Manor. There are matters, delicate matters, that may benefit from your singular talents. The snow will keep us cosy, n'est-ce pas?" Delicate matters. Poirot's moustache twitched at the phrase. In his experience, delicate was merely a euphemism for dangerous. Still, the promise of a roaring fire, decent claret, and the opportunity to observe the English aristocracy at play had been irresistible. He had packed his warmest waistcoats, his patent leather shoes with galoshes, and most importantly, his little grey cells. The manor loomed ahead like a Gothic sentinel, its chimneys belching smoke into the storm. Built in the reign of Queen Anne, Hargrove Manor was a monument to faded grandeur. Red brick gone soft with lichen, mullioned windows glowing faintly, a porte-cochere sagging under the weight of centuries. Icicles hung from the eaves like the teeth of some ancient beast. As Briggs eased the car beneath the archway, the wind dropped to a whisper, as if the house itself inhaled. A liveried footman emerged, battling the door against the gale. "Mr. Poirot, Sir Reginald's compliments. This way, sir. Mind the step, it's treacherous." Poirot descended with the dignity of a monarch, his cane tapping the flagstones. The air was so cold it burned the lungs. Snowflakes melted on his moustache, and he brushed them away with irritation. Inside, the foyer was a cavern of oak and shadow, lit by a single chandelier that swayed gently, as if the house breathed. A fire roared in the grate, but the warmth barely reached the edges of the vast space. Sir Reginald Hargrove strode forward, a bear of a man in his late 50s, ruddy-cheeked and booming. His tweed suit strained at the seams, and his moustache rivaled Poirot's in magnificence, though it lacked the Belgian's sculptural precision. "Poirot!" By Jove, you've braved the elements. Capital! Capital! He pumped Poirot's hand with enthusiasm. Come in, come in! Briggs, see to the luggage. Jenkins, a hot toddy for our guest. Poirot allowed himself to be divested of his coat and hat, revealing a waistcoat of dove-grey silk and a tie-pin shaped like a tiny silver pistol. You are too kind, Sir Reginald, but tell me, your note spoke of delicate matters. I am, as always, at your service. Sir Reginald's bonhomie faltered for a fraction of a second. All in good time, old chap. First, let's get you warm. The others are in the drawing-room. Bit of a mixed bag, I'm afraid. Family, friends, a doctor or two. You'll sort 'em out, I dare say. He led Poirot through a corridor lined with ancestral portraits, stern men in ruffs, ladies in bombazine, all gazing down with the disapproval of the long dead. The air smelled of beeswax, wood smoke, and something faintly metallic, like old blood. Poirot's nostrils flared. Interesting, he thought. The house remembers. The drawing-room was a blaze of light and colour. Crimson damask walls, a Christmas tree glittering with tinsel and glass baubles. A pianoforte in the corner, where a young woman in emerald velvet played a languid rendition of Greensleeves. The fire crackled, casting shadows that danced like imps. A dozen guests milled about, their voices a low hum beneath the music. "Allow me to present my wife, Lady Evelyn," Sir Reginald said, guiding Poirot toward a woman of striking beauty. She was perhaps 40, with porcelain skin and hair the colour of winter wheat, piled high in an elaborate chignon. Her gown was black velvet, severe yet elegant, and a rope of pearls gleamed at her throat. Her eyes, however, were the pale blue of a frozen lake, beautiful but cold. "Mr. Poirot," she said, extending a gloved hand. Her voice was low, almost husky. "Reginald has spoken of you often, the little Belgian with the big brain." Poirot bowed over her hand with courtly grace. "Madame, you flatter me. It is the brain that serves, not the stature. And you are the mistress of this splendid domain." "For my sins," she replied, a smile flickering like a candle in a draught. "Do try the mulled wine. Clara makes it with a secret ingredient, cloves perhaps, or something more exotic." As if summoned, a young woman appeared at Poirot's elbow bearing a silver tray. Clara Beaumont, the maid, was slight and dark-haired, with eyes like a startled fawn. Her uniform was crisp, but her hands trembled slightly as she offered the cup. "Sir," she murmured, curtsying. Poirot took the cup, noting the faint tremor in her fingers. Nerves, he thought, or guilt? The wine was rich, spiced with cinnamon and something sharper. Wormwood, perhaps. He sipped, savouring the warmth. Sir Reginald clapped his hands. "Now, Poirot, meet the rest of the menagerie. My nephew, Victor Langston, bit of a wastrel, but blood's blood, eh?" Victor was lounging against the mantel, a glass of whisky in hand. He was tall and dissipated, with the kind of good looks that promised ruin. High cheekbones, a petulant mouth, eyes the colour of stormy seas. His dinner jacket was impeccably cut but rumpled, as if he'd slept in it. "Uncle's told me all about you," he drawled. "The detective who solves murders before they happen. Care to predict mine?" Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Monsieur, I predict only that you drink too much and owe too much. The rest, ça dépend." Victor laughed, but it was a brittle sound. "Touché. Another whisky, Clara. Make it a double." Next, Sir Reginald introduced Dr. Amelia Thorne, a woman in her mid-30s with a severe bun and a monocle that glinted like a scalpel. She wore a tailored suit of navy wool, and her handshake was firm, almost masculine. "Mr. Poirot," she said crisply, "I've read your monograph on the psychology of the criminal mind. Fascinating, though I disagree with your emphasis on motive over method." "Doctor," Poirot replied, "motive is the seed, method the flower. One cannot exist without the other. But tell me, what brings a physician of your distinction to a country house party?" Her lips thinned. "Sir Reginald consulted me on a personal matter. A family complaint, you might say. Nothing infectious, I assure you." Poirot filed this away. A family complaint. Another thread in the tapestry. The other guests were a blur of faces. A dowager aunt who smelled of lavender and gin. A retired colonel with a monocle and a limp. A debutante who giggled at everything. But Poirot's attention kept returning to the four principals. Lady Evelyn, with her icy poise. Victor, with his reckless charm. Dr. Thorne, with her clinical detachment. And Clara, the maid, who moved like a ghost among them. Dinner was announced, and the party processored into the dining room. A cathedral of mahogany and candlelight. The table was set with Georgian silver and crystal that caught the flames like stars. Sir Reginald took his place at the head, Lady Evelyn at the foot. Poirot was seated between the dowager aunt and the debutante, both of whom chattered incessantly. He endured it with the patience of a saint, his ears attuned to the undercurrents. Victor was already drunk, his voice rising. "Uncle, you promised to settle my accounts at White's. A gentleman's word, dash it all." Sir Reginald's face darkened. "And a gentleman pays his own debts, Victor. I've bailed you out thrice this year. No more." Lady Evelyn's fork paused midway to her lips. "Reginald, darling, it's Christmas. Can't we discuss this later?" "There's nothing to discuss," Sir Reginald snapped. "The boy's a leech." Dr. Thorne leaned forward, her monocle flashing. "Speaking of health, Sir Reginald, you really ought to moderate your port. Your liver—" "My liver's my own concern, Doctor," he growled. "I'll drink what I like in my own house." Clara hovered at his elbow, refilling his glass with a steadiness that belied her earlier tremor. Poirot watched her closely. Her eyes were fixed on Sir Reginald with an intensity that was almost possessive. The meal progressed. Consommé, roast pheasant, a charlotte russe that melted on the tongue. The conversation veered from politics to gossip to the supernatural. Someone mentioned the Hargrove family ghost, a lady in grey who walked the West Wing on the anniversary of her death. "Superstitious nonsense," Sir Reginald barked, but Lady Evelyn crossed herself subtly. After dinner, the men retired to the billiard-room for cigars and brandy, the women to the drawing-room for coffee and bridge. Poirot excused himself, pleading fatigue, and slipped into the library. The room was a treasure trove. Leather-bound volumes, a globe that spun with a whisper, a fireplace carved with grotesque faces. He selected a volume of Dickens, but his mind was elsewhere. He was examining a portrait above the mantel, Sir Reginald's father, a stern man with his victor's eyes, when Clara entered, carrying a tray of decanters. She started at the sight of him. "Oh, Mr. Poirot, I didn't see you." "Forgive me, mademoiselle. I'm like the mouse, quiet, but observant." He smiled, but his eyes were sharp. "You serve Sir Reginald with great devotion." She flushed. "He's been kind to me, sir. More than kind." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "He's not like the others. He sees people." Poirot tilted his head. "And Lady Evelyn, does she see you?" Clara's hands tightened on the tray. "She sees what she wants to see. But I know things about the house, about the family." She glanced at the door. "There's a passage, sir, behind the library panel. Leads to the study. Sir Reginald showed me once when we were alone." Poirot's moustache quivered. A secret passage. The first piece of the puzzle. You are wise to confide in me, Clara. Discretion is the better part of valor, n'est-ce pas? She nodded, eyes wide, and fled. Later, as Poirot retired to his room, a cosy chamber with a four-poster bed and a fire that hissed like a serpent, he reviewed the evening. The tensions were palpable. Victor's desperation, Lady Evelyn's icy control, Dr. Thorne's veiled hostility, Clara's devotion. And Sir Reginald himself, a man who ruled his kingdom with a rod of iron, yet carried secrets like burrs in his tweed. Outside the storm raged on, the wind screaming through the eaves. Poirot stood at the window, watching the snow obliterate the world. Somewhere in the darkness, a clock struck midnight. And then a sound, a thud, distant but unmistakable, from the direction of the study. Poirot's hand tightened on the curtain. The game, he thought, has begun. Chapter 2. The Locked Study. Dawn did not so much arrive as seep through the frost-laced windows of Hargrove Manor, a pallid, reluctant light that turned the snow to the colour of old bone. The storm had not abated. If anything, it had grown teeth in the night. The wind prowled the eaves like a starving wolf, and every pane of glass rattled in its frame. Hercule Poirot woke before the housemaid's knock, his internal clock as precise as a Swiss chronometer. He lay for a moment beneath the eiderdown, listening to the house breathe, creaks in the old beams, the muffled clatter of pans from the distant kitchen, and beneath it all, the low, ceaseless murmur of human anxiety. He rose, performed his ablutions with military efficiency, and dressed in a charcoal three-piece suit, the waistcoat buttoned high. His tie was knotted with mathematical symmetry. His shoes gleamed like obsidian. Only when the mirror reflected absolute perfection did he permit himself a small, satisfied nod. Order, he thought, is the antidote to chaos. Then, pocketing his silver pocket watch, he descended to the breakfast room. The long table was set with Wedgwood china and heavy silver, but the atmosphere was funereal. The dowager aunt picked at a kipper with the enthusiasm of a condemned woman. The debutante stared into her tea as though it might offer absolution. Victor Langston nursed a black coffee, his eyes bloodshot and his hand none too steady. Dr. Amelia Thorne buttered toast with surgical precision, her monocle catching the light like a warning. Lady Evelyn was absent. Sir Reginald had not appeared. Clara moved among them like a shadow, pouring coffee, refilling marmalade. Her face was pale, her movements brittle. When she reached Poirot, her hand shook so violently that the cup rattled in its saucer. "Merci, mademoiselle," Poirot said softly. "You did not sleep well." She glanced toward the door. "No, sir. The storm and dreams." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I thought I heard him call my name. Sir Reginald, in the night." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Interesting. And did you go to him?" Her eyes widened. "No, I dared not. Lady Evelyn—" At that moment, Inspector Japp burst in, snow still clinging to his bowler and the shoulders of his ulster. His face was ruddy with cold and something darker, anticipation perhaps, or dread. Chief Inspector James Japp of Scotland Yard was a bulldog of a man, square-jawed, thick-necked, with a voice like gravel soaked in gin. He and Poirot had crossed paths many times, usually to the Yard's reluctant benefit. "Morning all," Japp barked. "Blasted weather. Roads are impassable. Got here just before the drift closed the lane. Sir Reginald about?" Victor snorted. "Haven't seen Uncle since he stormed off to his study last night. Probably sleeping off the port." Dr. Thorne set down her knife. He was in a foul temper. I advised rest, but he laughed in my face. Poirot sipped his coffee. Excellent, strong, with a hint of chicory. And Lady Evelyn? Still abed, Clara said quickly. Too quickly. The silence that followed was broken by a sound that sliced through the room like a scalpel. A scream, high and keening, from the direction of the west wing. Clara dropped the coffee pot. Brown liquid spread across the damask like spilled blood. Lady Evelyn Hargrove stood in the doorway, her black velvet dressing gown clutched tight, her face the colour of parchment. Her eyes were wide, pupils dilated with shock. "He's dead," she whispered. Then louder, a wail. "Reginald, he's dead!" The room erupted. Chairs scraped, voices rose. Poirot was already moving, Japp at his heels. They followed Lady Evelyn down the corridor, past suits of armour that gleamed dully in the half-light, to the heavy oak door of Sir Reginald's study. It was closed, locked. "Reginald!" Lady Evelyn beat upon the panels with her fists. "Open the door!" Japp shouldered her aside gently. "Stand back, milady." He rattled the handle. Solid, unyielding. "Key! Inside!" she gasped. He always locked himself in when working late. Poirot knelt, peering through the keyhole. The key was in the lock, on the inside. He straightened, his expression grave. "Mon ami, we must force entry, vite!" Victor and the Colonel, roused from his kippers, threw their weight against the door. Wood groaned, then splintered. The lock gave with a sharp crack, and the door swung inward on protesting hinges. The study was a tableau of death. Sir Reginald Hargrove lay slumped across his desk, one arm outstretched as if reaching for something just beyond grasp. His face was congested, lips blue, a thin line of foam at the corner of his mouth. The whiskey decanter stood open, a crystal tumbler shattered on the Persian rug, amber liquid soaking into the intricate pattern like a wound. Papers were scattered. Ledgers, letters, a half-written document in bold black ink. The fire had burned low, casting long shadows that seemed to writhe. Dr. Thorne pushed past, kneeling beside the body. Her fingers moved with professional detachment, pulse, pupils, the faint rigour at the jaw. "Dead 4 to 6 hours. Cyanide, almost certainly. Smell the almonds." She indicated the tumbler. "In the whiskey." Japp whistled. "Locked room, poison. No footprints in the snow outside the window. Classic, eh, Poirot?" Poirot did not answer immediately. He was circling the room like a bloodhound, his eyes cataloguing every detail. The window was latched from within, the snow outside undisturbed, save for a thin layer of frost on the sill. The desk drawer was ajar. Inside, a small vial, empty, label torn. The safe in the corner stood open, its contents rifled. And on the blotter, clutched in Sir Reginald's rigid fingers, a crumpled note. "The past returns in winter's chill." Poirot plucked it free with tweezers from his pocket, always prepared. The handwriting was hurried, almost illegible, but the paper was heavy, expensive. "Someone wished to silence him," he murmured. "But who poured the drink?" Victor stepped forward, swaying slightly. I shared a nightcap with him. Around 11. He was alive when I left. Swear it." Clara, hovering in the doorway, spoke up. "I brought a fresh bottle at 10:30, sealed. He opened it himself." Lady Evelyn sank into a chair, pressing a handkerchief to her lips. "He was rewriting his will. Said he'd had enough of parasites." Her eyes flicked to Victor. Dr. Thorne stood, stripping off her gloves. The poison was fast-acting. He'd have collapsed within minutes. Whoever administered it was in this room, or had access. Poirot's gaze fell upon the lock. A faint scratch marred the brass, fresh and bright. He traced it with a gloved finger. Forced, or a clever illusion? He turned to Japp. Seal the room. No one enters without my say-so. As the group filed out, uneasy and muttering, Poirot lingered. He examined the shattered glass. Cut crystal, heavy base. A smear of lipstick on the rim, faint but unmistakable. Coral pink, Lady Evelyn's shade, or another's. In the corridor, a shadow detached itself from the wall. Clara, watching. Their eyes met. She turned and fled, her footsteps echoing like a heartbeat. Poirot stroked his moustache. The little grey cells, they begin to stir. Outside, the snow kept falling, erasing the world. But inside Hargrove Manor, the darkness was only beginning to reveal its secrets. Chapter 3. Suspects in the Snow. The library of Hargrove Manor smelled of old leather, pipe tobacco and the acrid bite of fear. A single lamp with a green glass shade cast a pool of light across the mahogany table, leaving the corners in bruised shadow. Outside, the blizzard had settled into a steady, relentless hiss, as though the house itself were being sanded down to bone. Hercule Poirot stood at the head of the table, like a diminutive general. His small hands clasped behind his back, his green eyes glittering with the cold clarity of a winter sky. The 5 principals sat before him: Lady Evelyn, Victor Langston, Dr. Amelia Thorne, Clara Beaumont, and Inspector Japp, each wrapped in their own cocoon of suspicion. Poirot broke the silence with the precision of a scalpel. Mesdames et messieurs, we are marooned. The snow has made us prisoners, and among prisoners, there is always one who is more dangerous than the storm. Sir Reginald Hargrove was murdered between 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock this morning. The door locked from within, the window latched, the poison, cyanide, in the whiskey. Yet someone entered, someone poured, someone watched him die. That someone is in this room. A log cracked in the hearth. Sparks flew like startled fireflies. Lady Evelyn flinched. She had changed into a charcoal morning dress, the severity of which only accentuated her pallor. A single diamond brooch glittered at her throat like a drop of frozen blood. You speak with certainty, Monsieur Poirot, she said, her voice low and musical. But certainty is a luxury we cannot afford. My husband had enemies, business rivals, political adversaries, none of whom, Poirot interrupted gently, could traverse 10 miles of blizzard in the dead of night, scale a wall, and depart without trace. None! The killer slept under this roof. Victor Langston slouched in his chair, a fresh whiskey in hand despite the hour. His tie was askew, his hair dishevelled, and his eyes, those stormy Langston eyes, were fixed on the decanter as though it were the only honest thing in the room. Dash it all, Poirot, you're making mountains out of molehills. Uncle was a tyrant, cut me off without a shilling, threatened to expose my indiscretions. But poison? I'm no chemist. Dr. Thorne removed her monocle and polished it with a linen handkerchief. The gesture was deliberate, almost theatrical. Cyanide is not difficult to obtain, Mr. Langston. Any competent physician or gambler with underworld connections could procure it. The question is delivery. She replaced the monocle with a click. The tumbler was clean save for the residue inside the rim. The poison was not in the bottle. It was in the glass itself, or on something that touched his lips. Clara Beaumont stood at the periphery, half in shadow, her apron twisted between her fingers. Her dark hair had escaped its pins and curled damply at her temples. I polished the glasses myself yesterday, she whispered. They were spotless, I swear it. Poirot's gaze softened, but only fractionally. Mademoiselle, you brought the fresh bottle at 10:30, sealed? Yes, sir, from the cellar. Sir Reginald opened it with his own corkscrew. Her voice cracked. He smiled at me, said I was the only honest soul in the house. Lady Evelyn's head snapped up. Honest? That girl? Her laugh was brittle, like ice breaking. She was forever mooning about him, fetching his slippers, lingering at his study door. If anyone had cause— Cause is not proof, madame, Poirot said. Let us examine motives with the clarity of a surgeon's blade. He began to pace, his patent leather shoes silent on the Turkey rug. Lady Evelyn Hargrove, wife of 20 years, mistress of a crumbling estate. Sir Reginald spoke last night of rewriting his will. You, madame, stood to lose everything. The house, the investments, the London flat. Inheritance is a powerful aphrodisiac, or a poison. Lady Evelyn's fingers tightened on her pearls. I had no need of poison. Divorce would have sufficed. Divorce, Poirot repeated, savouring the word. But Sir Reginald was a proud man. A Catholic, perhaps? Or simply vindictive? A divorced wife receives little. Victor drained his glass and reached for the decanter. Japp's hand shot out, staying him. Easy, lad. You'll need your wits. Victor sneered. My wits? Uncle threatened to ruin me. Debts at White's? A scandal with a married woman? Yes, I needed money. But I was in the billiard room until midnight, playing snooker with the Colonel. Ask him. Dr. Thorne leaned forward. And I was in the conservatory, cataloguing Sir Reginald's orchids. He had a rare phalaenopsis, poisonous sap, ironically. Clara saw me there at 11:15. Clara nodded miserably. I did, ma'am. You asked for scissors. Poirot stopped pacing. Alibis, then. Fragile as spun sugar. The Colonel drinks. The conservatory is adjacent to the west wing. And you, mademoiselle, he turned to Clara. You were seen near the study at 11:30 by the kitchen maid, carrying a tray. Clara's knees buckled. Japp caught her elbow. I took him cocoa. He liked it before bed. But the door was locked. I knocked. No answer. I left the tray outside. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Yet the tray was not there this morning. Curious. He crossed to the fireplace and lifted a small object from the mantel. A jade cigarette case, monogrammed V.L. Victor's. Found in the study beneath the desk. Explain, monsieur. Victor blanched. I must have dropped it last night, during our nightcap. Convenient, Dr. Thorne murmured, or planted. Lady Evelyn rose, her chair scraping. Enough of this circus. My husband is dead, and you play parlour games. Inspector Japp, do your duty. Japp cleared his throat. Lady Hargrove, I'll need statements from everyone. Poirot, the room's sealed. Forensics'll be days with this weather. Poirot inclined his head. Then we proceed with psychology. Observe. He produced the crumpled note from his pocket, holding it to the light. The past returns in winter's chill. The paper is from Sir Reginald's own desk, watermarked. The ink, however, is not. It is Quink, permanent blue-black, introduced only last year. Sir Reginald used Schaeffer's script, washable. Someone wrote this recently, in haste. Dr. Thorne examined it through her monocle. The handwriting slopes. Left. Unusual. Most right-handed writers slope right. Clara is left-handed, Lady Evelyn said triumphantly. Clara gasped. I write with my right in service. Only my diary. Silence, Poirot commanded. The room stilled. We have motives, greed, revenge, jealousy, fear. We have opportunity. A secret passage Clara mentioned. A locked door that may not have been locked. A window that might have been opened and closed. And we have misdirection. He gestured to a side table where a velvet jewel case lay open, empty. Lady Evelyn's rubies, missing since yesterday. A theft or a distraction? The clasp was forced, but the scratches are on the inside. Someone opened it from within. Victor swore under his breath. Those were Mother's. Uncle kept them in the safe. The safe was open, Poirot said, yet nothing else taken. Why? A sudden gust rattled the windows. The lamp flickered. In the brief darkness, a sound, soft, deliberate, footsteps in the corridor. Japp drew his revolver. Who's there? The door creaked open. The kitchen maid, white-faced, stood trembling. Begging your pardon, sir. It's the attic. Something wailing up there. Like a banshee. Cook's nigh hysterical. Dr. Thorne stood. Mass hysteria. The storm plays tricks. But Poirot's eyes were alight. Or the killer plays tricks. Come, we investigate. They filed into the hall, the wind's howl now joined by another sound, a thin, eerie keening from above. Clara crossed herself. Lady Evelyn clutched Victor's arm. As they climbed the servants' stairs, snow sifted through a cracked pane, dusting the steps like ash. At the attic door, the wailing ceased. Silence, thick and oppressive. Japp pushed it open. Moonlight through a dormer revealed dust sheets, broken furniture, a child's rocking horse coated in cobwebs. And in the centre, a gramophone, its horn pointed toward the vent that led to the guest rooms below. On the turntable, a record, The Banshee's Wail, a music hall novelty. Victor laughed, a jagged sound. Someone's idea of a joke. Poirot lifted the needle. A joke with a purpose, to frighten, to distract, but from what? He knelt, examining the floorboards. A faint scuff mark, leading to a loose panel. Behind it, a bundle wrapped in oilcloth. He unwrapped it carefully. Inside, a woman's kid glove, monogrammed E.H., stained with a faint amber residue. And a small glass vial, empty, labelled potassium cyanide. Lady Evelyn stared, transfixed. Those are my gloves, but I lost them weeks ago. Poirot held the vial to the light. Lost, or stolen. The game, mes amis, grows interesting. Far below, a clock struck 3. The storm tightened its grip, and in the attic's gloom, the suspects stood like statues carved from ice, each one wondering who among them would be the next to fall. Chapter 4. Whispers of the Past. The blizzard had entered the house. It seeped through keyholes, curled beneath doors, and turned every breath into a small white ghost. Hercule Poirot led the way down the narrow back stairs from the attic, the oil-wrapped bundle tucked beneath his arm like contraband. Behind him, the others followed in a ragged file. Japp, with his revolver half drawn, Dr. Thorne clutching her medical bag as though it were a talisman, Victor Langston swaying with drink and dread, Lady Evelyn pale as candle wax, and Clara Beaumont last of all, her apron twisted into a knot that looked like a noose. They reached the first-floor landing. A draught swept along the corridor, carrying the scent of wet wool and something sharper, bitter almonds. Poirot paused outside the closed door of the master bedroom. "Madam," he said to Lady Evelyn, "your apartments. We begin here." She hesitated, then produced a small key from the chatelaine at her waist. The lock turned with a reluctant click. Inside, the room was a shrine to opulence. A 4-poster bed swathed in burgundy silk, a dressing table crowded with crystal bottles, a wardrobe yawning open to reveal furs and gowns. But the fire had died to embers, and frost feathered the inside of the window panes. Poirot set the bundle on the escritoire and unwrapped it with deliberate care. The kid glove, E.H. stitched in seed pearls, lay beside the empty cyanide vial. Lady Evelyn stared as though at a serpent. "Those gloves were a gift from Reginald on our 10th anniversary," she said. "I wore them to the opera in March. Afterward, I could not find them. I thought the maid had mislaid them." Clara made a small sound, half protest, half sob. Poirot lifted the glove to the lamplight. "The stain, whiskey, yes? And beneath it, a trace of the poison. Someone wore this glove to handle the glass without leaving prints. Someone who knew your habits, madame. Lady Evelyn's hand flew to her throat. You cannot think. I think everything, Poirot said. Come, we search. They moved with the efficiency of a well-drilled squad. Japp took the wardrobe, Dr. Thorne the dressing table, Victor the bedside cabinet, where he found a half-empty bottle of laudanum and a packet of letters tied with faded ribbon. Clara hovered, wringing her hands until Poirot assigned her the window seat. Minutes passed in tense silence, broken only by the storm. Then Dr. Thorne gave a sharp exclamation. From a velvet-lined drawer, she drew a photograph in a silver frame. Sir Reginald, younger, smiling, arm around a dark-haired woman who was unmistakably Clara, except the Clara in the picture wore a wedding ring and a look of radiant happiness. Clara gasped. That's impossible. I never— Look at the date on the back, Thorne said. March 1928, 7 years ago. Poirot took the photograph. The woman was Clara, but the eyes were different, older, somehow, though the face was the same. A sister, he murmured, a cousin, or— His gaze flicked to Lady Evelyn, a first wife. Lady Evelyn laughed, a brittle sound. Reginald was married before me, yes, to a housemaid, scandal of the county. She died in childbirth, the child with her. He never spoke of it. Clara shook her head violently. My mother died when I was born. Sir Reginald, he took me in when I was 16, said I reminded him of someone. He was kind. Kind, Victor sneered. Or calculating. Uncle always did have an eye for a pretty face. Perhaps the past wasn't buried as deep as you thought, Aunt. Japp emerged from the wardrobe holding a man's dressing gown. Navy silk, monogram RH, with a dark stain on the cuff. Blood? He wondered aloud. Dr. Thorne sniffed it. Whiskey again, and something metallic, not blood, cyanide salts, perhaps. Poirot's eyes narrowed. The plot thickens. Now, Mademoiselle Clara, the passage you mentioned, show us. Clara led them to the servants' stair, then to a stretch of oak panelling that looked no different from the rest. She pressed a knot in the wood. A section swung inward with a soft sigh, revealing a narrow corridor lit by a single cobwebby bulb. The air was colder here, thick with dust and the smell of damp stone. Sir Reginald showed me when I first came, Clara whispered. Said it was built during the Civil War, for escape. It runs from the master bedroom to the study, and from the study to the cellar. They filed into the passage. The floorboards creaked beneath their feet, the walls pressed close, brushing Poirot's shoulders. After 20 yards, a second panel opened into the study, now sealed with police tape, but the tape had been cut and refastened carelessly. Japp swore. Someone's been in here since we left. Poirot knelt, examining the tape. Cut with a penknife, see the nicks, and look. He pointed to the floorboards. A faint scuff mark, the same as in the attic. Our ghost walks on leather soles, size 7, I think, a woman's foot. Lady Evelyn's breath hitched. My shoes are size 6. Size 6.5, Dr. Thorne corrected. I noticed when you kicked off your galoshes in the hall. Clara. Clara lifted her skirt an inch. Plain black Oxfords, scuffed but sturdy. Size 5, ma'am. Victor laughed nervously. Well, that lets the ladies off the hook, eh? No, Poirot said. It narrows the field, but let us continue. They descended a spiral of stone steps into the cellar. The air grew colder, heavy with the scent of coal and wine. Rows of bottles gleamed dully in the torchlight. At the far end, a wooden crate had been dragged aside, revealing a small door set into the foundation. It stood ajar. Japp pushed it open. Beyond lay a tunnel, rough-hewn, ancient, its walls glistening with frost. "Old smuggler's run," he muttered. "Leads to the ice house, I'll wager." Poirot stepped inside. The tunnel was narrow, the ceiling low. Icicles hung like daggers. 10 paces in, he stopped. On the ground lay a single pearl earring, Lady Evelyn's from the pair she had worn at dinner. She touched her ear, startled. "I lost one yesterday. Thought it fell in the snow." "Or was planted," Poirot said, "to suggest flight. But the tunnel exits into the ice house, yes? And the ice house door is bolted from within. No footprints in the snow beyond. Ergo, our killer returned the way they came." They retraced their steps. In the cellar proper, Dr. Thorne discovered a small tin box hidden behind a sack of potatoes. Inside, a bundle of love letters. Yellowed with age, addressed to my darling Reggie in a girlish hand. The signature, Eliza Beaumont. Clara stared. That was my mother's name. Poirot read aloud. "You promised we would be together always. The child is yours, Reggie. Do not abandon us." The last letter was dated 3 days before Eliza's death. Victor whistled. "So Uncle had a bastard daughter, and hired her as a maid. Charming." Lady Evelyn's face was stone. "He told me the child died. He lied." Poirot closed the box. "Lies upon lies, but lies leave traces. Observe," he pointed to the floor near the crate. A smear of grease, still tacky. "From a lantern, perhaps. Someone was here recently, moving the crate to access the tunnel. But why?" Japp scratched his head. "To fetch the poison. Cyanide's used in photography. Sir Reginald had a darkroom in the attic." "Possible," Poirot said. "Or to plant evidence. The glove, the earring, the letters, all discovered too conveniently. Someone wishes us to look in certain directions." They returned to the study. Poirot stood at the desk, reconstructing the scene. "Sir Reginald sits here, writing. The door is locked, ostensibly. The killer enters via the passage, wearing the stolen glove. They pour whiskey, perhaps from their own flask to avoid the bottle. They lace the glass. Sir Reginald drinks, collapses. The killer departs, locking the door from the inside with a string or a hairpin. Simple trick, but they leave the note. Why?" Dr. Thorne frowned. "To point to a motive from the past. Exactement. The past is the key, but whose past?" A sudden thud echoed from upstairs. They froze, then another closer. Footsteps running. Japp bolted for the door. "Stay here," but Poirot was already moving, swift as a cat. They raced up the servants' stairs along the corridor. The footsteps stopped outside the master bedroom. The door stood open. Inside, the room was in chaos. Drawers yanked out, the mattress slashed, the wardrobe ransacked. On the floor lay Clara's apron, torn, stained with fresh blood. Clara herself was gone. Chapter 5. The Forged Will. The blood on Clara's apron was still wet, bright arterial scarlet that glistened like garnets in the lamplight. It lay in the middle of the ravaged bedroom floor, the torn fabric twisted as if someone had tried to strangle it. Hercule Poirot knelt, gloved finger hovering just above the stain. He did not touch, he observed. The droplets formed a broken line toward the open window, where snow had begun to feather the sill. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, "she is hurt, but not dead. The quantity is small, perhaps a cut hand, a nosebleed, and the trail—" He leaned out the casement. The wind clawed at his moustache, but he saw what he needed. A single set of footprints, size 5, staggering across the narrow balcony toward the drainpipe that clung to the west wall like a black vine. Inspector Japp was already at the wardrobe, revolver in hand. She's gone over the side, into the storm, foolish girl. She'll freeze in minutes." Victor Langston swayed in the doorway, whiskey flask forgotten. "Clara! But why? She's the victim here. Someone attacked her." Dr. Amelia Thorne pushed past him, medical bag clattering. "Let me see the blood type, if it's hers." She produced a small lancet and a slide, scraped a sample, and peered through a pocket microscope. "Oh, positive. Common. Could be anyone's." Lady Evelyn stood frozen, one hand pressed to her mouth. "The poor child! If she's innocent, innocent people do not flee into blizzards," Poirot said sharply. "Come, we follow the trail before the snow erases it." They descended the main staircase in a rush, Jap barking orders to the footman to fetch lanterns and ropes. The front door groaned open onto a wall of white. The wind hit them like a living thing, driving needles of ice into exposed skin. Poirot pulled his astrakhan collar high and stepped into the maelstrom. The footprints were already half-filled, but visible, small, desperate, veering left toward the old ice house. The group fanned out, Jap and Victor ahead, Thorne and Lady Evelyn behind, Poirot in the centre, eyes scanning every drift. The world had shrunk to a circle of lantern light and the howl of the gale. 20 yards from the house, the trail vanished beneath a fresh avalanche from the eaves. Jap cursed and began digging with his bare hands. Poirot stopped him. "No, look!" He pointed to a darker patch in the snow. Blood again, frozen into ruby crystals. "She fell here, but then his lantern caught a glint of metal, half buried nearby. A small silver locket, chain snapped. He pried it free. Inside, a miniature photograph of Sir Reginald, and on the reverse engraved, 'To see from our forever.'" Victor stared. "He gave her that, the old goat." "Silence," Poirot snapped. "Listen." Beneath the wind's roar, a faint sound, a muffled sob coming from the ice house. The door stood ajar, a black rectangle against the white. Jap kicked it wide. Inside, the air was tomb-cold, thick with the smell of sawdust and decay. Blocks of ice glimmered like pale coffins. In the far corner, Clara Beaumont lay curled against a crate, one hand pressed to her scalp, where blood matted her dark hair. Her eyes were wide, pupils blown, with terror. "Clara!" Lady Evelyn rushed forward, but Poirot held her back. "Careful, madame, she may not be alone." Jap swept the lantern in a slow arc. Shadows leapt, nothing moved. Dr. Thorne knelt beside the maid, fingers gentle but efficient. "Concussion, possibly. Superficial scalp wound. She's been struck with something blunt." She produced smelling salts. Clara jerked, gasping. They took me," she whispered. "From behind, a scarf over my mouth. I fought, bit a hand, then the dark—" "Who?" Poirot demanded. "Describe the hand." "Gloved. But I tasted blood and perfume, jasmine." Lady Evelyn's hand flew to her throat. "That's my scent, but I was with you." "Someone borrowed your bottle," Thorne said grimly, "or your glove." They carried Clara back to the house, the storm snarling at their heels. In the warmth of the kitchen, Cook wrapped her in blankets while Thorne stitched the wound. Poirot watched from the doorway, mind racing. The attack on Clara was a diversion, but from what? He returned to the study alone. The police tape hung limp. Someone had been here again. The desk drawer was open wider than before. Inside, a folded document, heavy cream paper, Sir Reginald's crest. Poirot unfolded it with care. A will dated yesterday. In it, Sir Reginald disinherited Victor entirely, left a modest annuity to Lady Evelyn, and bequeathed the bulk of the estate. Hargrove Manor, the London properties, the investments, to Dr. Amelia Thorne, in gratitude for services rendered and to ensure the continuation of my medical legacy. Poirot's moustache bristled. He compared the signature to a letter from Sir Reginald's desk. The loops were identical, the pressure consistent, but the ink was wrong. Quink, not script, and the date. The nib had scratched slightly, leaving a microscopic burr. Forgery. He summoned the others to the library. Clara, pale but conscious, sat wrapped in a shawl. Japp barred the door. "Mes amis," Poirot began, holding up the will, "we have been deceived. This document is a lie, crafted to cast suspicion on Dr. Thorne. But the true killer made one error. They used modern ink on old paper. The fibres have absorbed it unevenly, see?" He held it to the lamp. Faint blue halos ringed the letters. Thorne's monocle flashed. "I never wanted his money. He consulted me about a heart condition, angina. I prescribed digitalis, that's all." Victor lunged for the will. "If it's fake, then I'm still heir. Uncle promised nothing," Lady Evelyn cut in. "He told me last week he was cutting you both out. The estate is entailed. Goes to a distant cousin in Canada, unless he broke the trust. He was seeing a solicitor after Christmas." Poirot raised a hand. "The will is a red herring, yes, but it tells us something crucial. The killer has access to Sir Reginald's stationery, his seal, and his habits. They knew he was rewriting the true will. They needed time to search, to destroy the real document." He crossed to the fireplace. The ashes were cold, but beneath them lay a corner of vellum, singed but legible. "Appoint my wife Evelyn sole executrix." The rest was ash. "Destroyed," Poirot said, "but not before the killer photographed it, perhaps, or memorized it. The forged will was insurance. If the real one surfaced, this would muddy the waters." Clara spoke, voice small. "Sir Reginald burned papers last night. I saw smoke from the chimney when I brought his cocoa. He said, 'Out with the old, in with the new.'" Japp scratched his chin. "So the real will might still be here. Hidden. Or carried by the killer," Thorne added. "In a pocket, a locket, a—" She stopped. All eyes turned to Clara's locket, now on the table. Poirot opened it again. Behind the photograph, a thin fold of paper. He teased it out, a miniature copy of the true will, handwritten, witnessed by Clara and the butler. Lady Evelyn inherited everything. Victor received a token $500. Dr. Thorne, a bequest of $10,000 for her research. Clara, $100 and a cottage. Victor laughed bitterly. "So the maid gets more than me. Typical." Poirot folded the paper. "This is why Clara was attacked. The killer needed the locket. They struck her, took her to the ice house to search in private, but she woke, fought, escaped through the tunnel. The blood trail was meant to lead us outside, away from the house, while they returned to destroy evidence." Lady Evelyn's voice shook. "But who? We were all together." "No. For 7 minutes, while we searched the cellar, Dr. Thorne returned to the kitchen for bandages. Victor slipped away to the billiard room. Lady Evelyn, vous étiez seule dans le boudoir, n'est-ce pas?" She flushed. "I needed air. The storm." 7 minutes, Poirot repeated. "Enough to strike, to drag, to stage." Clara began to weep. "I remember now. The scarf smelled of jasmine and tobacco, Sir Reginald's brand." The room stilled. Victor's hand went to his pocket. Empty. I ran out of cigarettes hours ago." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Then we search pockets, now." Japp moved first, patting Victor down. In the lining of his dinner jacket, a small glass vial, half full of white crystals, and a torn scrap of vellum matching the ashes. Victor stared at it, horrified. "That's not mine! Someone planted, like the cigarette case?" Thorne asked dryly. Outside, the storm gave a sudden, triumphant howl. The lights flickered, died. darkness swallowed the room. A crash, glass shattering. When the lamps were relit, the window stood open, snow swirling in. On the sill, a single jasmine petal, bruised and frozen. The killer had vanished into the night. Chapter 6. Shadows in the Cellar. The jasmine petal lay on the library carpet like a drop of frozen blood. Snow hissed through the broken window, erasing the footprint on the sill before Jap could cast plaster. The lights guttered back to life, revealing 5 faces carved from shock. Lady Evelyn clutching the back of a chair. Victor white as chalk, Dr. Thorne's monocle dangling from its ribbon. Clara swaddled in blankets and trembling. And Poirot alone seemed carved from ice, his eyes glittering like winter stars. "Mon Dieu," he said softly, "the killer is bold. They strike in our midst, then vanish like smoke, but smoke leaves a scent." He lifted the petal, sniffed. "Jasmine absolute, expensive, imported from Grasse. Only 1 bottle in the house, madame." He turned to Lady Evelyn. She nodded, throat working. "In my dressing room. A gift from Paris. Then we know our ghost wears perfume and size 7 boots. Come, the trail leads down." They descended the servants' stair in single file, lanterns swinging. The cellar door stood ajar, exhaling a breath of frost. Jap pushed it wide. The air below was tomb-cold, thick with coal dust and the sweet rot of forgotten wine. Their footsteps echoed like gunshots on the stone. Poirot moved first, lantern high. The crate that had concealed the smuggler's tunnel was shoved aside. The small door beyond yawned black. Fresh scuff marks, size 7 again, led inside. Jap drew his Webley. "Careful, Poirot. Could be a trap. Or a confession," the detective replied. The tunnel was narrower than memory, walls sweating ice. Their breath plumed white. 10 paces in, the passage forked, left to the ice house, right to a branch none had noticed before. Poirot knelt. The right-hand path bore the same scuff, plus a smear of blood, Clara's, still tacky. "Someone dragged her this way after the ice house," Thorne murmured. "But why?" Poirot's lantern caught a glint ahead. Brass hinges, a low iron-bound door. It opened with a shriek onto a crypt beneath the family chapel, a forgotten ossuary of the Hargroves. Stone sarcophagi lined the walls, lids carved with weeping angels. In the centre stood a marble tomb, Sir Reginald Hargrove, 1632, 1728. The air smelled of myrrh and decay. On the tomb lay Clara's torn apron, arranged like an altar cloth. Beside it, the missing ruby necklace, coiled like a sleeping snake, and a single sheet of vellum. The true will, intact, sealed with red wax. Someone had brought it here to destroy, then thought better. Victor reached for the necklace. Jap slapped his hand away. "Evidence, lad!" Poirot examined the will. The seal was unbroken, the handwriting unmistakably Sir Reginald's. "He hid it here last night, family crypt, fitting for family secrets, but the killer followed." Dr. Thorne's lantern swept the shadows. "Look!" A sarcophagus lid was askew, recently moved. Inside, not bones, but a leather folio stuffed with photographs. She lifted one, Sir Reginald young, arm around a pregnant woman, Eliza Beaumont. Another, the same woman, dead on a childbirth bed, infant. Beside her, swaddled in blood. A third, Sir Reginald holding a newborn, face twisted with grief. Clara made a strangled sound. "That's me. He kept them." Poirot's voice was gentle. "Your father never abandoned you, mademoiselle. He buried the past to protect you from scandal, and from his wife." Lady Evelyn's laugh cracked like ice. "Protect? He humiliated me for 20 years with his whores and byblows. This changes nothing." "Everything," Poirot countered. "Motive is a hydra. Cut one head, another grows." A low scrape echoed behind them. They whirled. The iron door had swung shut. The bolt shot home with a clang. Darkness swallowed the lanterns as a draught snuffed them one by one. Japp fired at the lock. Sparks a ricochet, then silence. Bolted from outside. We're trapped. Panic rippled. Victor pounded the door. Help! We're in the crypt! Poirot's voice cut through. Calmez-vous. The killer wishes us frightened, not dead yet. Observe. He relit his lantern with a vesta. The flame revealed a grate high in the wall, air shaft to the chapel above. And beneath it, scratched into the stone, the past returns in winter's chill, the same phrase as the note. Thorne traced the letters. Fresh, done with the scalpel, my scalpel stolen from my bag. Clara pointed to the sarcophagus. There, air hole. A narrow slit breathed cold. Voices drifted down, muffled, urgent. The killer was in the chapel. Poirot boosted Clara to the grate. She peered through. It's Victor! No, wait. Her voice dropped. It's Lady Evelyn. She's burning something in the font. Victor spun. Aunt Evelyn, but she's here. Lady Evelyn smiled, thin and terrible. No, darling, I'm here. She stepped from the shadows behind the tomb, a silhouette in black. In her gloved hand, a derringer, pearl-handled, aimed at Poirot's heart. The real Lady Evelyn, bound, gagged, eyes wide with terror, lay trussed inside the open sarcophagus, hidden beneath a shroud of cobwebs. Victor lunged. The gun cracked. Plaster exploded from the wall. Japp tackled him. Thorne grabbed a femur from a niche and swung. Lady Evelyn ducked, fired again. The bullet sparked off stone. Poirot moved like lightning. He hurled the ruby necklace. Gems scattered like blood droplets. Lady Evelyn flinched, distracted. Clara dropped from the grate onto her back. The derringer skittered across the floor. Japp pinned the impostor, face now visible in the lantern light. Beneath the veil and makeup, Dr. Amelia Thorne, monocle gone, eyes wild. You, Victor gasped. Thorne laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Surprised, nephew? Evelyn's been drugged since dawn. Laudanum in her tea. I needed her alive to sign papers, dead to take the blame. She nodded at the bound woman. Twins run in the family, you know. Evelyn's mirror in Paris. Same height, same voice. A fortune for the right face. Poirot retrieved the derringer. You forged the will, planted the glove, staged the ghost, but the boots, size 7, yours. Borrowed from the housemaid in London, Thorne sneered. Details, Poirot. You obsess over details while I planned the perfect crime. Clara freed the real Lady Evelyn, who sagged into her arms, weeping. Japp cuffed Thorne. You'll hang for this, Doctor. Thorne's smile didn't waver. Will I? Sir Reginald died of cyanide, untraceable after cremation. The will leaves everything to me. Without a body, there is a body, Poirot said quietly. He lifted the shroud from the sarcophagus floor. Beneath lay Sir Reginald, shrouded, rigid, eyes staring sightlessly. Moved here last night via the tunnel. You planned to cremate him in the chapel furnace, destroy evidence, but the storm delayed you. Thorne's composure cracked. How? Your scalpel left a nick on the coffin lid. And the jasmine, your one vanity. You wore it to impersonate Lady Evelyn, but the scent lingered on the glove. Japp hauled Thorne to her feet. Amelia Thorne, I arrest you for murder, forgery, and assault. As they dragged her toward the door, she twisted. Victor, he knew. He lent me the passage key. Victor paled. Lies. I thought she wanted to rob Uncle, not kill him. Poirot's gaze was pitiless. We shall see. The little grey cells do not lie. The bolt outside shot back. Footman, alerted by the gunshots. Light flooded the crypt. Snow had stopped. Pale dawn filtered through the grate. The storm was breaking, but the darkness in Hargrove Manor had only begun to lift. Chapter 7. Deductions by Firelight. Dawn crept over the Yorkshire moors like a reluctant penitent, pale gold bleeding into the snow. The storm had spent itself. Only a few lazy flakes drifted from a sky the colour of tarnished pewter. Hargrove Manor stood silent, its chimneys exhaling thin ribbons of smoke. In the great hall, the fire had been stoked high, and the suspects, now prisoners of circumstance, sat in a semicircle of wing chairs, wrapped in blankets and suspicion. Hercule Poirot stood before the hearth, a small, impeccable figure against the blaze. His overcoat was discarded, his waistcoat gleamed like polished steel. In one hand he held Dr. Amelia Thorne's derringer, in the other the true will, still sealed. Inspector Japp flanked him, notebook open, cuffs ready. Clara Beaumont, bandaged and pale, sat between Lady Evelyn, the real one, eyes red-rimmed, and Victor Langston, whose hands shook as he clutched a cup of tea laced with brandy. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, voice soft yet carrying to every corner, "the night has been long, the storm cruel, but the little grey cells, they never sleep. We have a corpse, a forgery, a ghost, and a confession. Yet the puzzle is not complete. One piece remains hidden. Let us find it together." He laid the derringer on the mantel. First, the locked room. Impossible, no? A door bolted from within, a window latched, no footprints in the snow. Yet Sir Reginald was poisoned between 11 and 1. The solution is simple. The door was never locked from within. The killer used the passage, entered, administered the poison, then exited, bolting the door behind them with a length of silk thread and a bent hairpin. A trick I have seen in Brussels, 1919. The scratch on the lock, made by the hairpin slipping. Victor snorted. Clever, but who had the thread? Poirot produced a spool from his pocket. Crimson silk, monogrammed E.H. From Lady Evelyn's sewing basket. Stolen, perhaps, or borrowed. But the true genius was the poison's delivery. He crossed to a side table where the shattered tumbler had been reassembled. Cyanide in the whiskey? No, the bottle was clean. The glass itself held the residue, inside the rim where lips touch. But how to lace a glass without trace? Observe. He lifted a sugar cube from the bowl. Ice, a cube of frozen cyanide solution. Dropped into the drink, it melts, leaving no vessel, no fingerprint. The cellar ice house provided the medium. The killer needed only a syringe and a steady hand. Dr. Thorne, cuffed to a chair, monocle restored, smiled thinly. Hypothermia preserves tissue. Clever, Poirot, but the ice cube would cloud the whiskey. Only if stirred, Poirot countered. Sir Reginald drank neat. The cloudiness he would blame on the storm's chill, and the bitter almonds, masked by the peat of the malt. Lady Evelyn stirred. But the note? The past returns in winter's chill. Whose past? Poirot's eyes softened. Yours, madame, and Clara's, and Dr. Thorne's. Sir Reginald discovered the truth. Clara was his daughter by Eliza Beaumont. He planned to acknowledge her in the true will. Hence the cottage, the 100 loss. But he also discovered Dr. Thorne's secret. Thorne's smile vanished. Poirot turned to her. You were not merely his physician. You were Eliza's cousin, sent to watch over the child after her death. Sir Reginald paid you handsomely to keep silent, but when he decided to rewrite the will, cutting you out entirely, you saw ruin. You forged the document, leaving everything to yourself, using quink ink and a forged witness signature, Clara's, copied from her diary. Clara gasped. I never— You did not need to, Poirot said. Thorne stole the diary pages. She also stole Lady Evelyn's glove, her jasmine, her boots from the London maid. She staged the ghost with the gramophone to create panic, planted the ruby necklace to suggest theft, attacked Clara to retrieve the locket will. But one error. The boots, size 7. Lady Evelyn is 6.5. Clara, 5. Only you, Doctor, fit perfectly. Thorn lunged against her cuffs. Lies! Victor helped me. He lent the passage key, knew about the ice. Victor leapt up, tea spilling. I thought she wanted to rob the safe, not murder. She said Uncle was cutting me off. I'd be ruined. Poirot raised a hand. Silence. We have motives in abundance. Dr. Thorne's greed, Victor's desperation, Lady Evelyn's humiliation, Clara's fear of exposure. But only one had the skill to synthesize cyanide ice. Only one had access to the cellar at the crucial hour. He produced a small vial from his pocket, half full, labelled digitalis. From your bag, Doctor, but the other half? Dissolved in water, frozen into cubes. You entered the study at 11:47. Clara saw you leave the conservatory then. You poured Sir Reginald a nightcap, dropped the cube, watched him drink, he collapsed. You locked the door with the thread trick, exited via the passage. Later, you moved the body to the crypt to buy time for cremation. Japp nodded. The furnace in the chapel, coal-fired, hot enough to destroy evidence. Thorne's defiance cracked. He deserved it. He ruined Eliza, ruined me. I studied medicine on his bribes, then he threatened to expose me as a fraud. I had nothing left. Lady Evelyn rose, voice trembling. And me? You drugged me, impersonated me. Why? Thorne's laugh was bitter. To sign the forged will as you, to frame you for suicide after grief. Victor would inherit, indebted to me, but the storm trapped us. Poirot's gaze swept the room. Almost perfect, but the jasmine lingered, the boots betrayed, and the locket, Clara's devotion saved her. Sir Reginald's last act was to hide the true will inside it, knowing someone would search her. Clara touched the locket, tears falling. He said, "Keep this close, child. It's your future." Victor sank into his chair. "I'm ruined anyway. Debts, scandal." "No," Poirot said. "The true will leaves you 500. Enough to start anew, if you choose honesty. Lady Evelyn inherits the estate, but with conditions. Clara's cottage, Dr. Thorne's research fund. Revoked now, of course." Japp hauled Thorne to her feet. "Amelia Thorne, you'll stand trial for murder, forgery, kidnapping," she spat at his feet. "History will call me victim." Poirot's voice was steel. "History calls you murderer." As Japp led her away, the sun broke fully over the moors, gilding the snow. The fire crackled, warming the hall. Lady Evelyn embraced Clara, awkward but genuine. Victor stared into the flames, lost. Poirot adjusted his tie. The winter darkness lifts, but the heart's shadows, they linger. Outside, a motor car crunched up the drive. Scotland Yard reinforcements. The case was closed, but the echoes would haunt Hargrove Manor for years. Chapter 8. The Unravelling Thread. The great hall of Hargrove Manor had never felt so small. The fire, once a roaring ally, now hissed and spat like a cornered cat. Sunlight poured through the tall windows, turning the snow outside into a blinding mirror. Yet the room remained cold. Cold with the chill of truth half-spoken. Dr. Amelia Thorne had been led away, in cuffs, her monocle glinting one last time, as Japp bundled her into the police car. The engine's rumble faded down the drive, leaving only the crackle of logs and the uneven breathing of the four who remained. Hercule Poirot stood at the mantel, the true will in one hand, a small sealed envelope in the other. The envelope had been slipped beneath the study door some time before dawn. Wax seal intact, no fingerprints, addressed in Sir Reginald's own hand. To be opened only in the event of my death, by Monsieur Hercule Poirot. Lady Evelyn sat rigid, spine straight as a ruler, a fresh cup of tea untouched before her. Victor Langston paced like a caged fox, brandy flask empty. Clara Beaumont, bandaged and blanket-wrapped, stared at the locket in her lap as though it might bite. Poirot broke the seal with a silver letter opener. The paper inside was heavy, cream, watermarked. He read aloud, voice steady. "If you are reading this, Poirot, I am dead. I invited you not for Yuletide cheer, but for protection. I have been poisoned, slowly, over months, by digitalis in my evening cocoa. The culprit is among us. Trust no one, not even my wife. The true will is hidden in Clara's locket. Guard her. She is my daughter. Forgive me, R.H." The room exhaled. Lady Evelyn's cup rattled in its saucer. Victor stopped pacing. Clara's tears fell silently onto the blanket. Poirot folded the letter. Sir Reginald knew. He felt the weakness, tasted the bitterness. He staged his own murder scene to force the killer's hand. Victor laughed. Harsh, incredulous. Staged? He's dead. Non, Poirot corrected. He is dead, yes. But the cyanide was the finale, not the overture. The digitalis weakened him. The cyanide finished him. The locked room, the ice cube, the forged will, all part of a play he directed from beyond the grave. Lady Evelyn found her voice. He suspected me. Poirot's eyes were gentle. He suspected everyone. You, madame, for the laudanum in your drawer, prescribed for nerves, but lethal in excess. Victor, for the debts and the forged IOUs in the safe. Dr. Thorne, for the digitalis missing from her bag. Even Clara, for her devotion. Clara shook her head. I would never. You did not, Poirot said, but Sir Reginald tested you all. He left the passage key on his desk, the ink bottle uncapped, the ice tray empty. He watched who entered, who lingered, the gramophone record, the ghostly wails, his own recordings played from the attic to flush the killer. Victor sank into a chair. Then Thorne was the instrument, not the composer, Poirot finished. She accelerated the plan, believing herself the mastermind. But Sir Reginald's letter proves he orchestrated the endgame. The forged will was his bait, the locket his legacy. He turned to Lady Evelyn. You knew of the digitalis, madame? She met his gaze, steady now. I knew he was ill. I found the empty vial in the conservatory, Thorne's. I confronted her. She laughed, said it was for orchids. I believed her. A pause. I should not have. Poirot nodded. And you, monsieur? He looked at Victor. Victor's hands trembled. I knew Uncle was cutting me off. Thorne offered a deal, forged the will, split the estate. I thought it was theft, not murder, I swear. Clara spoke, voice small but clear. He told me everything last week. Said the past was catching up. He gave me the locket. Said if anything happened, give it to you, Mr. Poirot. He trusted you. Poirot inclined his head. He trusted order, and order has prevailed. He placed the letter on the fire. It curled, blackened, became ash. The courts will decide Dr. Thorne's fate. Victor, your $500 is yours. Use it wisely. Lady Evelyn, the estate is yours, with Clara's cottage secure. The darkness is lifted. Outside, the snow began to melt, rivulets running like tears down the window panes. The moors stretched wide and white, innocent again. The case was closed, but the echoes would linger. Chapter 9. The Final Confrontation. The sun climbed higher, turning the snowfields into a lake of molten glass. Inside Hargrove Manor, the great hall had become a courtroom without walls. The fire burned low, its embers pulsing like a dying heart. Every tick of the ormolu clock on the mantel sounded like a gavel. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre, the true will now unfolded on the table like a battle standard. Around it sat the survivors. Lady Evelyn, rigid in black silk. Victor Langston, hollow-eyed and sober for the first time in days. Clara Beaumont, clutching the locket as though it were her father's hand. And Inspector Japp, returned from depositing Dr. Thorne in the police van, his notebook closed, but his revolver still in hand. Poirot's voice cut the silence with surgical calm. Mesdames et messieurs, the play is nearly over. The curtain falls, but one actor remains off stage. Dr. Thorne believed herself the author of this tragedy, yet she was merely the pen. The hand that guided her belonged to another. Sir Reginald's letter warned us, trust no one, not even my wife. Let us test that warning. He lifted the will. This document is genuine, witnessed by Clara and the butler, sealed in Sir Reginald's own blood-red wax. It leaves the estate to Lady Evelyn, $10,000 to Dr. Thorne's research, now forfeit, $500 to Victor, and a cottage to Clara, but there is a codicil, written in haste the night he died. He turned the page. Should any beneficiary be proved complicit in my demise, their share reverts to the Hargrove Trust for Orphans. Victor's head snapped up. Meaning, Poirot said, that if you helped Thorne, you lose everything. Lady Evelyn's fingers tightened on her pearls. And if I did? Poirot's eyes were green flint. Then the manor passes to charity, and Clara, Sir Reginald's acknowledged daughter, receives Kia. Lifetime annuity, Clara gasped. He wrote that? Poirot nodded. He did, but someone tried to destroy this codicil. The singed corner in the fireplace, matched to the vellum here. Someone burned a decoy, then hid the real one in the locket. Someone who knew Clara would be searched. He turned to Victor. You lent Thorne the passage key. You forged the IOUs in the safe. But did you know she would kill? Victor's voice cracked. I thought it was blackmail. Force uncle to pay my debts. She said the poison was a sleeping draught. I swear I didn't know. Poirot cut him off. And you, madame. He faced Lady Evelyn. The laudanum in your drawer. Prescribed, yes, but the bottle half empty. You visited the study at 11:15, ostensibly to say good night. Clara saw you leave with a tray. Cocoa, she thought. But the tray held something else. Lady Evelyn's laugh was brittle. You accuse me now? After Thorne confessed? Thorne confessed to acceleration, Poirot said. But the digitalis began months ago. Someone replaced Sir Reginald's heart pills with placebos, then laced his cocoa. Someone with access to the kitchen, the conservatory, the study. Someone who wore jasmine and size 6.5 boots. He produced the kid glove from his pocket. The one found in the attic, stained with cyanide. Monogram EH, but the stitching is fresh. Done by a left-handed seamstress. Clara is right-handed in service, but left in private. You, madam, are ambidextrous. You sewed the monogram yourself, then aged the glove with tea to match the pair lost in March. Lady Evelyn's hand flew to her throat. Preposterous! Poirot continued, relentless. You discovered Sir Reginald's affair with Eliza Beaumont years ago. You forgave, publicly, but you never forgot. When he decided to acknowledge Clara, you saw ruin, the estate entailed, the scandal, the whispers. You began the digitalis in August, slow, deniable. Thorne, desperate to keep her funding, agreed to finish the job with cyanide. You supplied the ice cube, the glove, the jasmine. She supplied the poison and the forgery. Victor lunged. Aunt Evelyn, you used me? Lady Evelyn's eyes blazed. You were a tool, Victor. A spoiled, debt-ridden tool. Thorne promised you'd inherit if I signed the forged will as a suicide, but I had my own plan. She reached into her sleeve. A second derringer, smaller, pearl-handled. Poirot, You meddle too much!" The room exploded into motion. Japp dove left, Victor right. Clara screamed. Poirot did not flinch. He stepped forward, voice calm. "Shoot, madame, and the codicil activates. The orphanage takes all. Clara inherits your husband's last laugh." Lady Evelyn's hand wavered. The gun trembled. Poirot continued, softer. "He knew you would try. He left the gramophone record, the banshee's wail, to warn you. The past returns in winter's chill. Your past, madame. The child you lost in 1918, the son who would have inherited everything. Sir Reginald blamed you for the miscarriage. You blamed him for Eliza. This was revenge, not greed." The derringer clattered to the rug. Lady Evelyn crumpled, sobbing. "He took everything from me. The child, the love, the future. I wanted him to feel it." Japp cuffed her gently. "Evelyn Hargrove, I arrest you for conspiracy to murder." Victor sank to his knees. "I'm free of debt, but ruined. $500 and a name in tatters." Clara knelt beside him, tentative. "You're alive, Mr. Victor, that's something." Poirot watched the scene, moustache twitching. "The winter darkness reveals all. Madame, your husband forgave you in the end. He left you the London flat, unentailed, a mercy you did not deserve." Lady Evelyn looked up, tears carving channels through her powder. "He always was a sentimental fool." Outside, the police van's engine turned over. 2 killers, 1 manor, 1 truth. The sun climbed higher, melting the snow into rivulets that ran like blood toward the moors. Chapter 10. Revelation in the Dawn. The sun had fully risen now, a pale gold coin balanced on the edge of the moors. Its light poured through the tall windows of Hargrove Manor's great hall, striking the dust motes into slow, golden spirals. The fire had burned to embers. The air smelled of cold ash and the faint, lingering trace of jasmine that would never quite leave the house. Outside, the police van's engine faded into the distance, carrying Dr. Amelia Thorne and Lady Evelyn Hargrove to York Assizes. The storm was gone, the snow already softening into slush, but the silence that followed was heavier than any blizzard. Hercule Poirot stood alone at the long table, arranging the final pieces of evidence with the precision of a watchmaker. The true will, the singed codicil, the crimson silk thread, the kid glove with its forged monogram, the empty digitalis vial, and, centre of all, the small silver locket, now open to reveal Sir Reginald's miniature portrait and the folded slip that had saved an inheritance. Inspector Japp had departed with the prisoners. The footman had been dismissed. Only 3 remained: Victor Langston, Clara Beaumont, and Poirot himself. Victor sat hunched in a wing chair, the 500 cheque, drawn on Sir Reginald's London bank, clutched in trembling fingers. His eyes were bloodshot, his collar askew, but for the first time in days he was sober. Clara stood by the window, the locket around her neck, gazing out at the melting world. Her bandage was fresh. Her face, though pale, carried a new stillness. Poirot broke the silence. "The winter darkness is ended, mes amis. The truth is laid bare, like the moors beneath the sun. Sir Reginald Hargrove was a man of secrets, but in death he chose honesty. Let us honour that." He turned to Clara. "Mademoiselle, you are the last Hargrove. The cottage is yours, the annuity secure. The manor passes to the trust, but you will never want. Your father saw to that." Clara's fingers touched the locket. "He called me Little Shadow when I was small. Said I followed him like one. I thought he was ashamed." Her voice cracked. "He wasn't." Victor looked up. "And me? $500 and a name in the mud. I'll be lucky to get a clerk's post in Leeds." Poirot's gaze was steady. "You have a choice, monsieur. The money is seed, not shackle. Plant it wisely, pay your debts, learn a trade, or squander it, and the past repeats. Sir Reginald gave you enough to begin again. That is mercy." Victor's laugh was bitter. Mercy from beyond the grave. The old man always did have the last word. Poirot moved to the fireplace, where a final envelope lay on the mantel sealed, addressed in Sir Reginald's spidery hand, "For Clara, when the storm has passed." Poirot handed it to her. He left this with the solicitor. It arrived by post this morning. Clara broke the seal with trembling fingers. Inside, a single sheet and a small key. "My dearest girl, if Poirot has done his work, you know the truth now. I was a coward in life, hid you, denied you, let Evelyn's pride rule us both. But I watched you grow into a woman of kindness and strength. The cottage is yours, but so is the East Wing Library, sealed since your mother's death. The key opens it. Inside are her letters, her portrait, and a trust in your name, 5,000 Tulst, invested since your birth. Live well, little shadow, forgive your foolish father." Clara's tears fell onto the page, blurring the ink. She pressed the letter to her heart. "He loved me," she whispered, "all along." Victor stood, unsteady. I should go. The train to London leaves at noon." He extended a hand to Poirot. Awkward, but sincere. "Thank you, monsieur, for seeing clearly when I was blind." Poirot shook it. "Clarity is the gift of order, monsieur. Use it." Victor turned to Clara. "I'm sorry, cousin, for everything." The word cousin hung between them, fragile but real. She nodded, unable to speak. The front door opened. Briggs, the chauffeur, entered, cap in hand. "Motor's ready, sir. Roads are clearing." Victor left without looking back. The door closed softly behind him. Poirot and Clara stood alone. Outside, the snow dripped from the eaves in steady, rhythmic plinks. Somewhere, a blackbird sang. Clara turned to him. "Will you stay, Monsieur Poirot? For tea? The East Wing? I'd like you to see it with me." Poirot smiled, the first true smile of the week. "Avec plaisir, mademoiselle. But first, a small ceremony." He crossed to the hearth, gathered the remnants of the forged will, the crimson thread, the empty vial. One by one, he fed them to the embers. They curled, blackened, became ash. "The darkness burns away," he said. "Only light remains." Together they walked the long corridor to the East Wing. The key turned in the lock with a soft click. The door swung open onto a room untouched by time. Bookshelves of calf-bound volumes, a lady's writing desk, a portrait above the mantel, Eliza Beaumont, dark-haired, smiling, eyes the exact shade of Clara's. Clara touched the canvas. "Mother," she breathed. Poirot stood back, hands clasped. "She lives in you, ma petite. And now the manor lives for others. The trust will make it a home for orphans, children like you once were, hidden in shadows." Clara turned, eyes bright. "Will you visit, when the gardens bloom? Every spring," Poirot promised. "I'm fond of gardens and of happy endings." They stepped outside. The air was sharp, clean, scented with pine and thaw. The moors stretched wide and white, but already green shoots pushed through the snow. Briggs waited with the car. Poirot's valise was packed. As the motor car pulled away, Clara stood on the steps, locket gleaming at her throat. She raised a hand in farewell. Poirot returned the gesture, then settled back, stroking his moustache. "The winter darkness is revealed," he murmured to the empty seat beside him. "And the little grey cells, they are content." The car crested the hill. Hargrove Manor shrank behind them, chimneys no longer smoking, windows catching the sun like eyes newly opened. Ahead, the road wound south toward London, toward new cases, new storms. But for one brief moment, the world was still. The snow melted, the blackbird sang, and in the heart of Yorkshire, a new legacy began.